All right. Ellis here from Pocket Crew Chief and Slingshot Racing Media, and we've had a couple of questions about what exactly Pocket Crew Chief is. So I wanted to take a few minutes to kind of talk about what it is, why it's useful, who it's useful for, and kind of give you some examples of what exactly it can do. So PCC, or Pocket Crew Chief, is an AI purpose-built tool for sim racers, specifically on iRacing. And right now, specifically for the NASCAR stock cars, the A class, the B class, the C class, ARCA series, as well as the late model stock cars as well. So what makes Pocket Crew Chief a little bit different from ChatGPT? Because a lot of people have asked, well, can I just do this on ChatGPT? And the question is, well, yeah, to a degree you can, but it's not going to work near as well, because what we've done with Pocket Crew Chief is it's a custom GPT using a large language model that is trained specifically on our own documentation and our own information and research into how the garage works in iRacing and how setup adjustment works for multiple different elements or components of kind of the mechanical aspects of these cars that I just mentioned. It has an extensive knowledge of the mechanical setups in these cars and specifically how they're going to react in certain conditions within the iRacing simulator. So the biggest thing is that I think that's the biggest question we've gotten. Why can't I just use ChatGPT for this? And that is the answer, is because we've spent a lot of time training a lot of information into this system that your normal ChatGPT doesn't necessarily have. We've given it context. Our crew chief, Barry, has context about what you might be wanting to know or how something you're wondering about might change how the car handles that your normal ChatGPT interface wouldn't necessarily understand. Another question we've gotten is this website safe? And the absolute answer is yes. It's encrypted. It has a certificate. The payments are handled through Stripe payments, which are trusted by major companies and used by companies worldwide. So nothing to worry about when it comes to that, to just kind of make everyone rest easy on that. And I think we should just dig into it here. This Pocket Crew Chief is for anybody. It's for beginners, maybe with no mechanical knowledge. It's for people who maybe are kind of having average mechanical knowledge, maybe have a little bit of knowledge of how the iRacing garage works. And it's for people who maybe have just hit their limit, but there might be more knowledge to be gained and insight and skills to be gained here. So a couple of examples of what we could use it for. The most basic scenario that was kind of in my mind when I developed Pocket Crew Chief was, man, how can I make my car handle better at certain parts of a track? So let's say, for instance, my B Xfinity car is loose on exit at Auto Club. You got to always tell it it's open or fixed setup, because that could make a difference, right? If you have an open setup, you've got a lot more adjustments you can make, but this thing works for fixed setups too. There are a lot of handful of adjustments, I should say, that can be made that could improve the handling and the tire saving kind of performance of a car based on your driving. So I'm going to say it's open setup for now. And let's see what our Pocket Crew Chief has to say. It takes a minute to think, but it will usually come up with some pretty good insight as to what can be done to some of the settings in the garage. And you can always ask it more. The list that it's going to give us here momentarily is not extensive in the sense that it covers every single thing. So you can see it going through, and it gives 6 recommendations. It talks about the track bar. It talks about spring rate adjustments in the rear springs, anti-roll bar settings, cross weight, ride height. And you can see for each one of these, it doesn't just tell you what should be adjusted. It tells you why that matters. Why are you making that change? And just to be clear about something, if you have a specific number set on your setup at the moment, you can always tell it what that number is. How many clicks or how many pounds is that increment set at right now? And it'll tell you what you should maybe take it down to. And if that is not enough, there's another cool feature that we're working on that works pretty well right now. I think it's going to get better with time, but you can actually include a picture of your setup. So if you're on your phone, you can just literally snap a picture of the garage screen. I'll go ahead and show you what that might look like here we are going to upload an image. I'm going to upload two. You can upload two at the same time because sometimes you have to one kind of camera frame won't fit the entire setup on iRacing. Looks like it might have to do, that was 615. Okay, we'll do both of those. And you can see they upload right here. While it's uploading, I'm going to say, can you take the images of the current setup in the garage and give me, pardon the typing, some specific adjustments and increments to adjust. I have attached images. Okay. So it's going to take a second. It might take just more than a couple seconds since it's analyzing an image of what you've kind of sent in at this point. But it should be pretty quick, within 30 to 45 seconds or so, to look over all that and tell you some areas. Okay, so here we go. Took probably 20 seconds or so. Here are some specific changes you can make. Tells you what you're currently set at and what you should go to. It covers some of the things that it talked about in our initial conversation, but it's included now camber into this. And it talks about creating a better line with left rear characteristics and how the car is going to handle. It talks about shock settings and even a wedge adjustment. And one thing to keep in mind, and Barry always tells you this, test one thing at a time. Don't make massive changes because you might go, take a swing too far. This is something that happens commonly in racing, is sometimes you maybe too many adjustments might turn the car in the other direction a little bit too far than you want to go. So that's a kind of your basic case example. One thing I'm also curious about is what happens when you're at Talladega or Daytona and you just need more speed in the car. What can you do here? You can certainly show it your settings with a screenshot or two of what you got, but let's just say I want to go faster in the truck at Daytona. How can I pick up more speed in my open setup? Let's just change that to raw speed, just so we're clear here. Okay, and let's see. So we told him we're in the truck. We've told him we're in an open setup. We've told him we're at Daytona. So hopefully he should make some recommendations about how we can just gain sheer speed. Maybe handling comes into this, but if we're looking to just keep up with some of these guys and gals who have made super big adjustments to kind of up the speed in their car, you can see here he gives a couple handling things that should potentially get the ride height down, which is going to make the car go faster through the air and be more aerodynamic. Talks about truck arm preloads. It talks about tape configuration. Let's just see, can we do anything else with aerodynamics? Maybe also, what about gearing? Or maybe even gearing in the truck. Okay, so we've asked him to follow up on some of this with a little bit more information. See what he comes up with here. Again, the goal is that he should tell us about some more aerodynamic changes. Talks about tape, which he already mentioned a little bit, goes in a little bit more depth here. He mentions spoiler angle can also be changed just a little bit. And to be very, honest, everything has to be done within the confines of what is legal in the iRacing setup for each track. So you might swing too big and make something not pass inspection. You got to be careful about that. It's not perfect in that sense, but you can kind of dial things back as you need to. Talks about the rear end ratio here in terms of gearing and tells you why exactly all of that stuff matters. So that's another great example here. Here's another one. What about when you've got a track that's super bumpy? Let's say I was in the late model socks at Nashville Fairgrounds the other day. Let's see. Maybe. There we go. Help me go over bumps more smoothly in the late model stock at Nashville. Hey, the great news is Barry understands typos as well. Pocket Crew Chief is set up so it can recognize words, even though you might have misspelled them. And with me, that's really helpful because I'm a bad misspeller. So let's see what he says here, what adjustments we can do to help kind of smooth out that ride and not upset the car through those corners with the bumps at Nashville. Okay, so talks about ride height, spring rates, shock rates, camber, and tells you a little bit more about why those things matter and which direction to go with those. So again, the point of me walking everyone through this is to show you that this is very specific information. It's not just spitting out one or two basic recommendations. It's giving you a whole array and kind of toolkit to work within. And if that's not enough, you can still go further with it. So we got some really cool stuff going on here. It's going to get better and better and better with each iteration. The more kind of knowledge we train it on, and I don't mean that you train it on, because that's what a couple of people have asked. Well, aren't we just doing your work for you? And that's not really true, because we're constantly uploading new knowledge and knowledge bases and sets into this particular GPT model that we have created. And so any feedback that you give it helps, but we're doing the groundwork here by finding as much research and doing our own documentation about how these cars should handle and what adjustments should be made. One final thing I want to show you is it can do more than just setups. What if I want to save tires? I'm really bad about driving my tires off early. Let's say, help me save my tires in the, let's just say, next gen is not a great example because tire wear is not great on next gens anyways. Let's say ARCA car. That's a car that will eat up some tires. Let's say ARCA at Dover. Let me save tires in my ARCA car at Dover. And on this, you don't really have to specify whether it's open or fixed setup. We can say, let's just say fixed setup here. Give me some driving tips and maybe some adjustments to fixed setup too. Okay, so again, prompting is something that generally works. I think the better you are at prompting and kind of understanding what you want to ask it, the better results you're going to get. But even with some basic stuff that we mentioned up above, some of those examples were still pretty helpful. Okay, so you can see here, he gave us some open setup changes, but some driving tips. He goes in, and these are basic. You can ask more about this as well. That's one thing to understand. The first answer you get is kind of your baseline, but you can ask him to go into more detail, whether it's on throttle modulation or optimal lines at particular tracks. You can see here, track bar height, tire pressures. These are all open setups. I want to ask him, can you help me out with some fixed setup changes to make to help with this? And as he's putting this out here, one of the things he recommends is the brake bias, right? That is one thing that you can do to help in a fixed setup that, isn't necessarily, super difficult to understand, but he'll tell you, adjust the brake bias, put more brake bias towards the rear than you are the front. And it kind of gives you more techniques and goes over those a little bit more. So lots of helpful stuff here. And one thing that I want to preach significantly here is you can go into as much detail as you want. You can ask him to give you more details on each one of these. His knowledge base is extensive, and we have designed it that way. So you can see here, simple interface. It's pretty much the chat, just like you're texting with somebody. He'll send you back answers. And even better is everything that you do is saved in your own conversation. So you can go back and look at what you already asked. So you have your own personal notebook as well, working through Pocket Crew Chief. So those are just a couple things. Just last things I want to mention. $5 a month not a whole lot to have access to a database of knowledge like this and not have to sift through anything, right? That sure, you can do web searches on all this stuff and you can probably find some information and piece it together, but this is giving you a game plan, right? It's not just you're having to sift through this stuff yourself. It is there. Time is money. We're in search of time. It seems like every single day there's not enough of it. Pocket Crew Chief is there for just that small fee a month, and you can cancel at any time. If you get it for a month, you realize, I didn't use this as much as I thought I was. I think you will, but you can always cancel at any time. No obligation or anything like that. So we're always taking feedback. If you do subscribe, you can go ahead and contact us and let us know if something's not working correctly, or maybe you just want to see new features. We've got all sorts of ideas for what we can incorporate into Pocket Crew Chief moving forward. So this was just a short video to kind of explain to you what Pocket Crew Chief is. You can visit thepocketcc.com to sign up, try it out for a month, see if you like it. And we think you will, but this is for anybody. It's for beginners, kind of maybe, your average iRacing driver or even your pros. There's something to be learned here. So we appreciate you checking this video out. If you have any questions, let us know. Let us know in the comments what you think you would be most likely to use it for. What car? What do you struggle with the most? Leave us a comment, let us know, or just let us know what you want to see in the future for Pocket Crew Chief. Appreciate everyone, and we hope to see you out there on the track.